All right, friends, we are back with another Sunday dinner. We're now at week 20 of the 52 Sunday Dinners project, where we're taking this cookbook right here, the 52 Sunday Dinners cookbook from Women's World magazine in 1924. So that's 100 years old. This cookbook has menus for every Sunday, and it has economy and seasonality in mind. So we're going through and we're remaking every one of these recipes. And then after we make it, we're trying them together. So if you'd like to see how today's turned out, let's jump into the kitchen and we'll get started. Oh, wait. I forgot to tell you what's on the menu today. So here we go. We are starting with a green pea soup. Our main meal will be a cold sliced pot roast with hot gravy. On the side, we'll have potatoes a la creme with fried cauliflower, very fancy sounding. We'll have horseradish, and for our salad, sliced tomatoes and mayonnaise. And then for dessert, strawberry shortcake and coconut macaroons. And as always, we'll have coffee. Okay, now let's go into the kitchen. Here we have the cold, I used frozen. I believe I talked about that last week as well. I haven't been able to find regular peas, so we used frozen. I used petite peas for this. So we're boiling it here, then we're going to add have our milk scalding. We'll thicken that and we'll mix everything together, season it, and it'll be ready to go. Poopsie. I turned around and started doing something else and my milk boiled over completely, so I'd say we're done here. Okay, after that situation, let's strain this into our pea puree. Not sure what we're straining out. Nothing. Kind of weird. I don't know. Why did we do that? Tell me. What do you think? For our shortcake, I'm gonna be honest with this recipe. I genuinely have no idea what half of it is meaning, I think. I do have our creamed butter and sugar here. I have our 3 eggs that we beat pretty light. And I've sifted our flour, our salt, and our baking powder. I have our cream here. I have no clue what it means when it's saying to put in deep tins. Does it mean molds? Does it mean like a metal cake pan? Because it talks about different molds and then it talks about splitting it in half. And I don't know if it's supposed to be small individual molds that we're putting it in. If it's deep tins, that maybe it's something that was common in the 1920s, not in the 2020s. If you know what they're referring to, let me know. I think the only thing I guess I can think of that I have comparable is to put it just in a cake pan. I'm also, it wants us to press it into the mold. Maybe it'll make more sense once we start rolling it out, but it's a little confusing to me. Okay, looking at this dough here, I can say for certain it will not roll out easily, and adding any thin cream to it is not going to help the issue because there's not enough flour. So we're just going to add a little bit more flour and hope that that helps a little bit. It's still pretty sticky. I think we still need some more flour here. Okay, I've added a lot more flour. I've gotten it to where I think we can roll it out, but I don't foresee adding cream in here at this point. It doesn't make sense to me. So we're gonna skip the cream. That may be the wrong choice, and maybe some of you are looking at this and you make this type of shortcake often. Maybe you can explain to me why that is the wrong choice if it is, but I just don't see incorporating it now after and not earlier with the eggs. I don't quite get it, but let me know what you think here, and we're gonna go ahead and press this into some, I think just one cake tin. I don't recall it saying to grease the pan, but I did do it this time. It didn't specify ungreased, and we've had some trouble getting things out of pans before, so I'm going to assume maybe this would have just been something they knew to do, or they thought that the people reading would know to do. So hopefully this is what they meant by a deep tin, and hopefully this is what they meant by press in, because this is what we have. We're gonna go ahead. I have the oven on 350 and we're gonna stick it in for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm really excited for the coconut macaroons. I love coconut so much. It's one of my very favorite flavors. So I'm really looking forward to this. I have our coconut. It's just shredded unsweetened coconut mixed with our powdered sugar. We have our egg whites right here. And I think I'm supposed to actually mix this into this. But I think maybe that is not big enough. So I'm going to mix this into this. Hopefully that is not the wrong choice. It does say, I'm surprised it doesn't say fold, but it does say to beat it into there. Also very happy this time of year that chickens are starting to lay eggs again, because as many of you know, they're very expensive. So our lovely neighbors are providing us with eggs for free. So, and we went through probably close to a dozen on this meal. So yes, feeling very, very grateful to have those. I'm starting to get much larger than a nutmeg here, so I probably ought to make them a bit smaller. I have a habit of doing that. I don't know about you guys, but when I make cookies or whatever it is that I'm baking, if I'm supposed to, or cooking, if I'm supposed to be making something that is a certain size, it slowly but surely just gets larger and larger and larger. This one also confuses me, the pot roast, because in the menu it says cold sliced pot roast. However, in the recipe, it's telling us to take it out immediately and put it on a platter. It never tells us to cool it. And are we just supposed to know to cool it? Or are we supposed to make this in the morning and serve it cold? Is the gravy and the vegetables supposed to be cold also? This is just very, very difficult to navigate. Now, I know that it says to brown the meat in the skillet and then put it into a separate iron kettle. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to make double the dishes when I already make an outrageous amount of dishes. I'm just doing it all in one pan. The thing I am very confused about, among other things that I've already said I'm confused about with this, is I have never browned meat, then floured it to cook it. I've always floured and then browned with the flour on it. So this seems a little odd. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. I have a tendency to do that sometimes, but yeah, have you seen this done before? Also, as you can see, instead of doing one 5 to 6 pound roast, I already had these roasts in the freezer. So instead of going out and buying another 6 pound roast, I decided to just use 2 roasts to equal 5 to 6 pounds. So that's what we have here. With all that fat that we just went ahead and rolled this in, I also found rolled instead of turning to be a very strange, just very strange verbiage to use. But it's sticking, I think, pretty well now that it has all of that grease, all the suet fat all over it. And I think I figured out maybe why you're supposed to do 2 separate, a skillet and then a kettle, because I went and just dropped my vegetables into the kettle or the Dutch oven that I'm using and promptly splashed all of that grease up on my wrist. So that doesn't feel too great at the moment, but such is life. I've cooked in enough kitchens. I'm surprised my wrists aren't just completely scarred up at this point. All right, I probably overfilled this, which is, you know, not a surprise if you've been around here. Let's get our boiling water, and then we'll get her in the oven. forgot about that. I need gloves. Probably another reason you're supposed to use 2 separate kettles. Confession time. It's actually the next day. But I just really like this outfit and wanted to wear it again. So we're gonna, I guess it'll look like we filmed this all in one day, but we didn't. We did it in 2 days. And this pot roast, I put it in last night. By the time I got it in the oven, I think it was maybe a little after 9 o'clock, maybe. It was probably closer to 9:30. And I thought, I do not want to stay up the whole night to kind of baby this and then do the whole gravy thing. So I changed the oven to warm, which is around 200 degrees, I think, and just let it bake the whole night. So it's probably not exactly how they wanted it. However, I guess in my justification, I thought, well, if they want it served cold, maybe that's what they meant to do. Maybe you're supposed to do it overnight. That's not what the recipe says. I don't think that's actually true, but I'm just trying to justify it. But either way, the vegetables got cooked down nice and soft, and several of you have suggested using a colander to strain some of these vegetables through before. I have food mills somewhere. I don't know where they're at. I went and looked for them this morning. They're not anywhere out and available. They're packed away somewhere. So we're gonna try the colander trick this time and see if that works. It also suggested adding the browned flour to thicken this, but I think by the time we get all of this vegetable pulp in there, I really don't think it's going to need thickening. The vegetable pulp did thicken it, but probably not quite enough, so we are going to go ahead and brown it, or thicken it. We're going to brown this flour and then thicken it. All right, we'll pour our gravy back in. I have my knife dipped in boiling water. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to dry it or not, but we're going to cut this in half. Do you think the water is to catch the crumbs, if there are any crumbs? No, it's not catching them. Okay, got it. All right, it looks just slightly underdone in the middle. I probably should have baked it just a little bit longer, but I like it that way. Okay, we have our strawberries. They want them cut in half. I don't know why they wanted so many strawberries. Did it say 4 pints or 4 quarts? Strawberries. Oh. Okay, so 3 pints of berries, 1 cup of powdered sugar. Good thing I re-looked at that because I forgot about the powdered sugar part. So we'll get them, half of them cut in half. We'll toss them with some powdered sugar, and then I don't know if the whole berries are supposed to be with powdered sugar also or not, but we'll go ahead and toss some with powdered sugar also, and we'll go from there. Not quite sure how I want to do this, but I think we'll start like this. Lower half covered in strawberries. Now we have the upper half. And just need to mix them up in a little bit of powdered sugar here. I'm just doing what was left over. Well, there's not much that was left over, but I think that's good enough. It's hard to keep these on here. Then we're supposed to cover it in meringue or whipped cream. I think we're going to go with whipped cream. When I think of strawberry shortcake, I think of whipped cream. I don't know about you guys. You know, it just, to me, seems like 2 cups of potatoes for this is not nearly enough for 6 hungry people on a Sunday dinner. So like sometimes the amounts that they make of things seem outrageous. This time to me, it seems like it's not even close to enough. I prepared these potatoes last night, so they are all good. There's actually 4 cups in here, so we're just going to do about half. That seems about right. It wants us to shake it, which seems very weird, but we're going to do that. Maybe it's so we don't break the potatoes up by stirring. I don't know. We have our yolks here, and I've gone with duck eggs this time around. So we have our yolks that we're beating with a little bit of salt and a little bit of flour. And we need to add enough water to make it like a batter. Hopefully that's the right amount. Might have been a little too much. May need to add a little more flour anyway because I used duck eggs instead of chicken eggs, so that might throw the ratios off a little bit. I added a little bit more flour. And now we're going to add our egg whites. Fold those in. Actually, maybe we ought to transfer into here. All right. Let's get it frying. Getting these dipped in this batter, and then we'll drop them in. Now it's my favorite time. It's time to eat everything. And we're starting off this dinner again with a soup. It's been a little while since we've had soup as a starter. Recently, in the last several, I'd say weeks to months, we've either gone straight to the main course, so we haven't even had a starter, or we've been pleasantly surprised with a little bit of fruit as a starter. But this time we're going with green pea soup. And I think I mentioned before also that we've noticed a pattern. The week prior, we'll have a certain vegetable, and then the following week, that vegetable will be a soup, or usually a cream of something soup. So this time we have the peas, and it's a delightful color. If you can see that green, I'm not sure if it's picking it up on camera, but it's very pretty. It does smell like peas a little bit. I smell the milk, I smell the peas. It smells nice. Let's give it a little taste here. It's good. It tastes very much of what it is, of peas and milk. And I think we've said this before. I know some people are very, very opposed to peas. So if you're someone who's opposed to peas, this would not be up your alley. If you like them, it would be. I will say the texture of it is a little bit, when we strained the peas, the pulp came out, but maybe it could have used just a little bit longer of a boiling, because it's like the pulp is still a little bit firm in there. Not quite as mushy as what you would expect for a soup or a pureed soup. We have our main course here. We have our beef, which is cold sliced, our potatoes a la creme, our fried cauliflower, which we actually had this already, I don't know how many weeks ago on accident, because they put the recipe on one of the menus and I didn't read it fully, but they just put the recipe on that page. It wasn't supposed to be served for that day. So we have tried this before, and I'll go ahead and link that up below if you want to see the first time that we tried it. But we also have horseradish. Now, On the menu, the horseradish is listed underneath of the sides before the salad course. And so it makes sense to me that it would be served with the beef because beef and horseradish go together. And what else would we be serving it on? But it just seems like it's placed in such an odd position in the menu. So I don't know if we're just supposed to eat it as a palate cleanser in between, if it's supposed to be just a little snack, a horseradish snack. But it's there, so I'm eating it with the beef. We're gonna go ahead and try this beef first. And I think I'd mentioned before, just the whole process of making this beef in the recipe seemed very different than what I'm used to. They wanted us to brown it first in a separate skillet. And of course, after I burned my wrists, we figured out maybe why that was, but it had us brown it and then flour it and then put it in a separate kettle, which it just seemed like such a strange thing to do. And I don't know, maybe that's just me. But let's go ahead and try this beef. I'm gonna try it with the gravy first, and our finished product of our gravy. I think it looks pretty good. It smells very good. I think I smell the carrots the most in there, but it certainly smells like pot roast vegetables. And the beef just smells like beef. That is pretty tasty. It tastes maybe nostalgic or something to me. When I think of a pot roast, I think of 1950s, and the mother and wife has come in and put this beautiful pot roast on the table, maybe some sort of Norman Rockwell-esque type picture, but it tastes very comforting. I can't say pot roast is something that's my favorite thing or that I even look forward to or super enjoy, but when I do eat it, it tastes very comforting. Let's try it with the horseradish. That's all. I'm gonna regret taking that much horseradish with it. I always take more horseradish than I'm prepared to once it's in my mouth. That horseradish smells so good. My mouth is just suddenly filling with saliva as I'm sniffing that horseradish. Well, that horseradish is terrific. I don't know. I'm tasting more of the horseradish than I am the beef, and that's fine by me because it's so delicious. This is, again, I found a little stash in our freezer that I didn't know about before, or I had forgotten about, and there were 2 more tubs of that horseradish that our neighbor made us. So, feeling very, very lucky to have found that, and it's pairing perfectly with this. The beef was good. Let's try our potatoes. There isn't a strong smell coming off of these. You smell a little bit of the cream, but you know, a potato doesn't smell very strong, nor does a cream sauce, so it's also pretty good. Again, there's not strong flavors coming out here. It is a little bit bland, but maybe in a good way. Like it's a smooth flavor. And I think maybe it goes well. The flavor of these cream potatoes go well with the beef. I think, of course, potatoes and beef always go well together. And let's try and see how our cauliflower pairs with the rest of the meal. That's so yummy. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I was just thinking, like, the cauliflower has a very distinct taste and it's delicious. But I was thinking there's not a lot of very strong flavors coming out of this, but I'm not looking at the sides. There's a lot of flavor in the gravy and in the horseradishes. You know, it's a powerful punch of flavor, but the gravy also has a good amount of flavor in it as well. And maybe that's why these other things are left just a little bit more bland or with less flavor. But Yeah, this is all pairing pretty nicely. I also like the horseradish with this because it does pair nicely, but the gravy on your beef, the creamed potatoes, the fried cauliflower, all of these are very kind of heavy, and the horseradish kind of brightens that up. It gives you that punch instead of that really kind of heaviness that might feel like it's kind of weighing you down a little bit. That horseradish really kicks it up. Onto our salad course. We have our potatoes, not potatoes, these are tomatoes. We have our tomatoes with mayonnaise. And as I had mentioned earlier, that the rest of that meal was a little bit heavier. I like the raw tomatoes for the salad course to kind of brighten and lighten that up. Now, we are serving it with mayonnaise, so maybe that kind of just defeats the whole purpose of brightening it up and making it less heavy, but let's try it and see how it tastes. Now, if you've been here more than a few weeks or seen some of our previous videos, you know how I feel about mayonnaise. I really don't like it. However, the one place that I think I do enjoy it is in the middle of the summer. You have a beautiful, fresh garden tomato. You take a thick slice and you put it on some bread. You slap some mayonnaise on it. You have a fresh out of the garden tomato sandwich. Oh, it's so good. So, so, so good. And now, not fresh out of my garden. We've talked about this also. I can't garden. I'm going to learn. But out of somebody else's garden. It's just the best, And I like mayonnaise on that, but it has to be a nice thin layer of mayonnaise. I prefer Miracle Whip, of course, but I can do mayonnaise on that. We'll see how this tastes comparatively. I shouldn't have brought that to mind because it's May. I got these tomatoes from the grocery store. There's no bread on here, so it's not even going to be close to the same, but we're still gonna be open-minded. You know, not bad at all. It gives the kind of idea of that tomato sandwich that I'm thinking about. Obviously not quite the same, but I think this is really, really good. And tomatoes and beef, I think, always pair well together. So I think this was maybe kind of the perfect salad for this. I'm a little bit nervous about how to cut this or how it's going to fall apart when I cut it, but we're going to give it a try anyway. I'm trying to do it toward you so you can see it. Ah! Well, the berries are falling off the top. Oh no! Well, that's how it went. I tried to kind of put it back together there. You can see that, how it looks. It certainly won't stay this pretty while I eat it, but let's give it a try here. The texture, oh, my slipper just fell off. The texture looks okay. I think it looks pretty comparable to a regular shortcake as I'm looking at it. Okay, yep, that strawberry just needs to come off the top. It doesn't smell bad. I was surprised, and I don't think I mentioned this as we were mixing it up. There was no flavor that got added, so no vanilla or, maybe an almond would be good here. I would think there would be flavoring added, but that's just me. Maybe you're not supposed to. I've never made a shortcake before, I don't think. That's really tasty. I've really been on that word a lot recently, I've noticed. I don't know that I've ever said the word tasty before to describe anything in my life before starting this project, and all of a sudden I'm saying it all the time. I don't know where it's coming from. But in regardless, it's tasty. The texture is nice. You can tell I think that it's gluten-free. I use the Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1, but I think it turned out really well for gluten-free. Now let's try it with the strawberry. Oh yeah, that's great. I think this recipe, I wasn't sure about it, and obviously we need to add a lot more flour if I'm remembering correctly what we did with it yesterday. I'm pretty sure we added a ton more flour to it, but it is really, really good. Last but not least, we have our coconut macaroons. Now, my initial thought is that we were given the option, either the coconut macaroons or the strawberry shortcake, but maybe these are supposed to be for lingering conversation and coffee afterward. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a choice. You can have the strawberry shortcake or the coconut macaroons. Either way, we made them both. So this is what we have left. And I did, as you can see, I think I mentioned, once I start making things, they get bigger and bigger, and I ran out of patience making these little ones. So I did a second cookie sheet and did a much larger option there. Now I do have to confess that I tried these already. I didn't do it on camera, but I just could not wait to try them because I love coconut so much. So I already know how these taste, but I'm going to pretend that it's the first time and I haven't tasted them for you. They smell really good. They're very soft. I've had some that are like this, kind of soft and sticky. I've had some that are much harder, like more dry and hard, like a very, very meringue type macaroon. But it smells like a classic coconut egg white macaroon. These are great. They're very chewy, but not too chewy. The edges, they've browned on the edges there to give kind of like that little bit of caramelized sugar flavor. They're great. I could dust off this whole plate if I wanted to. You know, I really liked how simple they were too. Like, you just mixed them together, whipped up a few egg whites, put them together, and threw them in. It took us just a few minutes to get this done. And the results are, oh, they're so yummy. And if you're looking for a gluten-free, dairy-free cookie, sometimes they're pretty hard to find without having that comparable flour. And then, you know, they don't really taste the same. But if you want something, if you like coconut and you want something that's gluten-free and dairy-free and still feels like you're eating the same thing, coconut macaroon, man, perfect, perfect. Overall, this menu was not too shabby. The desserts were delicious, and the other recipes all tasted pretty good. Now, I can't say it was my favorite. The main course and the sides were good on their own, and they did go well together. However, I think we've had things that I've liked a little bit better than this, so maybe I'll give this a 6 out of 10. Nutrition-wise, this one was a little bit heavier than some of the ones that we have had previously. Our beef, we had the pot roast, and we had a good bit of suet in there, and our potatoes had a cream sauce. We had the fried cauliflower, mayonnaise on our tomatoes. Just a little bit heavier. I liked the, I guess, array of different vegetables, and I really liked that we incorporated it into the gravy as well. I think overall with this one, I might go pretty similar, maybe a 7 out of 10 for this. Now, budget-wise, this one was a little bit more than maybe some of the less expensive ones that we've seen, but not the most expensive. It certainly wasn't outrageous, but, you know, coconut isn't cheap, and pot roast, different cuts of beef are not super cheap. For 6 people, I would imagine, I think this is probably around $70. If you liked what you saw today, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel so that you never miss another Sunday dinner. And join us next week where we have an array of really interesting recipes, including salmon loaf and feather cake. See you then.